So, back to the Frogs. They are number 4 in the latest CFP standings as we record our podcast that came out last night. But so I saw a stat on SportsCenter last night, just kind of on the scroll on the scroll on the bottom of the screen, that said TCU had a 30-something, maybe 36, I can't remember, % chance to make the CFP at the end of the year. And then I saw it popped up and it said that Tennessee had a 60-something % chance. And, obviously TCU right now is above Tennessee in those standings. I don't know how they do the math on those things. I assume that's expecting TCU to stumble somewhere in these last 3 games, maybe in the Big 12 championship game, because there is no way an undefeated Big 12 champion gets left out of this thing. Is there?
I don't think so. I mean, to me, that'd make the committee look really bad.
Really bad.
Yeah. And, but yeah, that percentage must be based on if TCU loses, because I don't think there's any way they could leave them out if they're unbeaten. I know like USC has some really good games left. They'd probably be in pretty prime position, too, just like Tennessee, if TCU lost. But yeah, you can't leave an unbeaten Horned Frogs out.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I mean, if you leave an unbeaten Power 5 team out, then you just got to blow the whole thing up, because it defeats the purpose. Yeah. Defeats the purpose of the system. I mean, there's some things that could happen that could throw a wrench and stuff. Like if LSU finds a way to beat Georgia, then that makes their case really compelling. As John said, like USC has a chance to finish 12-1 with a Pac-12 title, which would give them a good opportunity. But if they're undefeated, they're in. I really think Saturday is the only game they could lose and still have a chance. Like if you lose on the road to a Baylor team that's finishes 7-5 or 8-4, at least the committee can look at that and say, okay, well, all right, you stumbled on the road once. That makes sense. You still win the conference title game. If they lose to Iowa State, I think that drops them out. If they lose to even K-State in the conference title game, I just feel like the fact that they would not be the Big 12 champion would sort of disqualify them. But certainly the easiest thing to do is win out. If they win out and don't get in, then Brett Yormark's got to drive up to Grapevine or wherever that committee meets and handle some business, because then the Big 12 is in real trouble if that happens.
Yeah, sometimes it feels like it's so much about brand names, and it feels like Alabama could get in with 3 losses sometimes, I mean, because they're just Alabama, right? But yeah, I would say that if TCU got left out in that scenario, that they would have an even bigger gripe than they had back in 2014 or whatever that was, that very first year of the CFP, when they finished 6th, despite being 5th in the standings the week before.
Third. Yeah, third.
Third. Sorry. State. Yeah, third.
Okay, that's okay.
Yeah, 3rd to 5th. Yeah, is where they went. And they smoked whoever they played in that last game. Now, so did Baylor. And I always thought that Baylor actually did deserve to be ranked ahead of them based on the head-to-head thing that year. But both of them had really good cases. And here's the thing. I realize Ohio State got in that year and ended up winning the whole thing. Who's to say Baylor or TCU couldn't have won the whole thing that year?
Yeah, I mean, the namesake of this podcast, right? The one true champion year where they split the title. It was a mess. And how fun would that have been because those two schools were sniping each other every single week. It was like TCU and Baylor weren't playing their opponents. It was like they were playing each other on a week in, week out basis. It would just been awesome to see them play in Cowboy Stadium for a Big 12 title. But of course we know that, that didn't happen at that
right.
point.
Yeah. And I feel like the seeds for a 12 team playoff may have even been planted that year, because we've been talking ever since about, the teams that got left out and probably should have been in.